We did this last year. It's a lot of fun. I'm standing up here because I'm going to be running around handing the microphone to people because this is going to be more of y'all talking than it's going to be us. So I'll give us just a brief overview and then we'll get into it. We did it last year. We're going to follow a very similar format as last year. So if you're here last year, you already know the meta. We're going to present 2 hypothetical gods. They're not necessarily planned for actual creation anytime soon, but we'll use them as templates. And actually, last year we did a Hindu bird king Garuda, and some of his abilities that we designed together here actually inspired Horus's kit, because we ended up doing a bird character that year. So even though they're not specifically listed, we might do something similar. We might use these abilities here today, possibly in the game. So we're going to decide on the god. We're going to do a quick, just hand raise vote, which god we want to do. Then we're going to follow a simple template of something similar to what we would do as designers at the studio, but of course, sped up extremely rapidly. Something we would usually take us weeks, we're going to try to do in an hour. So it's going to be fast, it's going to be fun, we're going to run around. You're going to throw out your ideas for your abilities or kit suggestions, whatever stage of the format we're at. I'll just raise your hand, I'll run over to you, you'll pitch your idea. Pawn, Clumsy, Fish, and Chaos are going to quickly confer and Pawn's going to try to translate your suggestions into something that reads like an actual ability. Yep. And at the end, we'll bring up the list and we'll kind of decide on our favorite and try to put it together and make a kit. And by the end of this 1 hour, we should have a complete god kit, which is pretty cool. All right, so let's see the choices.
Should we do introductions real quick?
Yeah, we could do that. We could do that real quick.
Yeah.
Your mics are all live there.
So I'm Pon Pon. I'm god designer on SMITE. I worked on Heimdall and Baron Zmedi and King Arthur, those types of characters.
I'm Hi-Rez Fish. I'm also a designer on SMITE. I've worked on Hachiman, Cerberus, and several other gods.
Yep, Hi-Rez Clumsy, also a designer on SMITE, and worked on Yamoja, Oleron, Merlin, Jormungandr, and several other ones. It's not my birthday.
Happy birthday, Clumsy!
Happy birthday!
Old memes are the best memes.
Thanks, guys.
And I'm Chaos. I'm a gameplay programmer for SMITE. I worked on Cerberus, Baron, King Arthur, Horus, and Yamoja.
And former pro player.
Chaos.
And I'm Hi-Rez Ajax, the lead designer of SMITE. All right, so this is the rough process we're going to go through. We're going to decide on the god. We're going to identify the key themes, visual aspects. Then we're going to figure out a likely class and playstyle. Usually we decide on playstyle, or usually playstyles are done through passives or ultimates, but we can branch out a little bit there. Then we're going to try to brainstorm abilities, and then we'll clean up the kit. You got your pro jersey? Oh, nice.
There we go.
Fancy.
It's been too long.
It's the enemy. It's not even United.
Oh,
the
wow.
team before.
Yeah, old school.
Okay.
All right, so here are the 2 gods that we have for us to decide between. Epona, which is, she actually didn't win the vote last year. Garuda, the bird, did instead. So we have Epona, the Celtic goddess of horses. There's not too much lore about her. So both of these gods actually are both chosen. They have very little lore or very little visual depiction. So we have a lot of creativity today. But they have very key themes. So Epona is the goddess of horses. So if we do horses, we're going to be doing a lot of horse ideas. But other things we could do, movement, healing, nature, fertility. One of her core lore things is that she was thought to maybe her and her horses would lead souls to the afterlife, because horses are for transporting or for transportation. And she was actually one of the few Celtic goddesses still worshipped even after Rome, the Roman Empire, started taking over the Celtic lands, because they thought of her as a goddess of cavalry. And then we have Amoikane, the Japanese god of intelligence. He's often thought of about not just wisdom and knowledge, but more of these like mental magic type of things. So we could think of things like psychic powers, telekinesis powers, mind control, vision. In lore, he's often described as one that is called upon to give counsel to other gods. And he is described as the one, like his name literally translates like to one of many thoughts, or the thoughts of many inside of one. So he can almost be like a collective conscious of multiple beings, or he shares the thoughts of all other gods. So something like that. So we have really goddess, nature, fertility, or we have God with very mental magic psychic feel. So, all right, now we're going to vote. Everybody try to raise your hand for one or the other. Who wants Epona? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Come, get them up high. Get them up high. I want to make sure I can see you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, it's going to be tight. Okay, Amoakane? Ooh, I think Amoakane, yeah. Unfortunately, 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's not that tight.
All right, nice. I thought we were gonna get like a Epona crowd for, especially since we missed out on last year.
thought Epona's been requested a lot. She's got a name that's
At
very
least 800 times
popular.
by Tina.
Yeah. I know my wife and Tina are both very big fans of horses, so unfortunately
Now you
the
get
room has
brains.
spoken, and we will be doing psychic abilities here today.
Cool.
So now Ponpon's going to open up a Word document so he can take your suggestions to paper.
Just Windows split screen.
Will we be able to put that up there, Pon?
Yeah. We managed to last time. We might have to.
Oh,
So what I did last time is I unmaximized it.
So while
and then
we're
used the
doing
Windows
that,
arrow
I'll
keys to
just
move it
get
over
started
to
with
that.
suggestions. What type of class
would be-
would we expect this
side,
character to be?
Back and forth.
We can just yell things out here.
got it.
All right, duplicate.
Anybody think he shouldn't be a mage and want to make a case for it?
Okay.
I spelled that correctly.
Too many mages? Does anyone think he could make it interesting? An interesting support? What do we got back here? Okay. So he feels magical. We all can agree on that. So he could be an interesting support. He could be a mage. Should we do a vote again for an interesting mage or guardian? Does anyone have anything? So think about this psychic mental god. Think about a core ability, an ultimate, or a passive. And maybe that can help us decide.
Yeah. We also don't need to like decide immediately on what class
Yeah,
it is
we
right
don't have
now.
to lock it
After
in
we get a
right
couple
now.
of ideas in, maybe.
So now I'm going to try to run around and get everybody's suggestions. Let's think ultimates, passives, or play style. So for example, a play style is someone like Loki, a stealthing assassin, or Yamoja, a backline healer. So I'm going to try to run around and make sure everybody gets a chance to pitch your play style, passive, or ultimate.
Well, already I can say the passive would be something like the all-seeing eye or whatnot. He could just see like almost like a ward, not technically around the entire map, but like within a certain radius, he would be.
So he'd be the ward around him.
Some Heimdalls.
Okay. Oh, anti-stealth as well?
My idea for a passive would be similar to Vision, except he gets one player that he can see an area, not exactly where they are, but an area they're in this general area. And also, yeah, and also for general, I'm seeing like with the psychic stuff, a lot of displacement. So like backline displacement mage.
Is that the telekinesis kind of feel?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
I'd say something that's not in the game yet. For example, like if he hits a certain god, then he can now see their cooldowns and relics and ultimates and all that.
Yeah. We have that information.
I was gonna say, but if he got hit, because if he was a support,
We talked about
yeah, he could.
I can't remember who prepared it
Yeah,
recently.
maybe of
Did you?
the
Okay.
abilities that hit him. Or
Oh,
something like
maybe the guy that I can't say out loud because his mic in front of me.
Let's make sure the people in the middle and the back. Who else? Any other
All
play
clients do
style
have that information.
suggestions,
Though, so yeah, it's
passives?
really hard to
In the back,
Things that would control the whole kit.
AJ's gonna get his workout in.
I was thinking for the ultimate, like a mind control, like for 5 seconds you can control an
Yup.
enemy god. You know, like that would just be.
NPCs and gods? Okay.
Does that feel like more of a mage thing or a guardian thing to you? Or it could be either? Okay, could be either. Could be either. Okay, I'm coming around. I'm coming around.
Oh, man.
Sort of like
I know.
Scylla,
First thing comes
as she levels up, she can get like little placements of maybe like her own wards or something that can also grant buffs. So as she levels up to level 5, maybe one ward, her own ward. Level 10, 2, that can give more buffs as she levels up. And at level 20, she can give, I don't know, some sort of buff at the end.
All right, we got buffs and vision. Let's try to continue thinking, what else could this mental, psychic, magic character do besides the things we already have? Or anyone want to expand on these?
Probably for another passive, something that could be akin to like maybe an XP boost for the team. Basically like a teacher type of thing. That's psychic, kind of like you learn faster. So,
Oh gosh.
First. It's got to be OP. I'm going to level up fast.
Yep.
We could just have as like a normal ability, like Mind Lock or something, where it roots the enemy. It would be whether it's in a certain field or maybe in like a line, like a square. Yeah,
That
yeah.
reminds me of that Nox ability you really like. The one that got scrapped, the Nox ability that got scrapped, that you really love.
The old Nox alt?
Yeah, you love that one, right? Well, what was that alt?
Old Nox alt was a projectile and also debuff that injured people for using their own abilities.
Yeah.
So we cut it from the game because it was very confusing and it effectively encouraged you to, it punished you for playing Smite correctly. And
So
so,
you didn't like
effectively
that
it was
one,
just
okay.
like a bad silence. Like, and a lot of people were, the biggest thing was people were just confused. People didn't understand why they were dying from things. And we were getting like bug reports like, Nox was a mile away from me and I was just cast a heal on myself and I died. And we were like, so it was just too confusing. So, but you know, this character could totally work with confusion. That could be a theme. You know, just think of your Pokemon abilities as a psychic, or think of your
Side beam,
Elder
right?
Scrolls.
As a quick note,
magic
can everyone
wands.
read this font size? Is that good? Okay.
So I feel like even if we are thinking of a mage, we have a little bit of a supporty playstyle emerging from this.
Yeah.
So even if he is a mage, he feels like he's a little bit more CC control and not so much direct damage.
You could also do almost like a fortitude buff, or like instead of heal, a mana buff to help. You know, kind of like just since it's mental.
Inspiration
Just
kind
boosting
of
the
thing.
brain. Inspiration type
Yeah.
thing.
So,
Mana fits perfectly with mental.
Describe that a little bit more. Okay.
A mana heal. I like it. I like it.
So to me, it kind of feels like he's, because when I started seeing Omakane, I was thinking like he's like, there's not a lot of like gods of wisdom. I know Thoth is the other one who is like entirely wisdom, so I feel like he would kind of be like the reverse Thoth, and then kind of like a mixture of Nox at the same time. So I was thinking like, with the line kind of ability, but like rather than the silence bubble, he has just an entire like that cone, but instead of letting it be passable, it's like a Ymir wall, just nobody gets through it. It's visible, you can see through it, but nobody can pass through.
So,
yeah.
So like a bubble, a circular wall that blocks everyone out, like a kind of a stasis field, force field that prevents people from going. But no, you can't get inside of it. Everyone has to stay outside of it. And I guess if it dropped you on it, it would like push you out. So it's like a big circular blocking volume.
I have an idea for an ability kind of similar to that, because the first thing I thought of was also like it had to do with walls. So the first thing I thought of was you have like a glyph of pain type wall, except it's always in this direction from you. And then you have another wall on the other side that pushes everybody into it, and they take damage if they touch this wall.
So like,
Yeah. And then you'd have to have it so that you could push them the other way too somehow. So like toggle the ability left and right somehow.
Or Sun Wukong targeter or something like that.
Yeah.
We've had that kind of pitch.
We've had that kind of idea
Yeah,
many
we've thought about
times.
that a few times.
'Cause
I'm
we
gonna
love
keep
that
working
idea of
my
just
way
like a
around.
force
So
push.
I feel like we've got a good work into the kit already. So like if you want to pitch something that's not an ultimate or a passive, that's okay. But ultimates and passives are just especially hard to come up with. So keep thinking out that if you're in the audience, try to keep thinking of more ultimates and passives. But I'll hit this group and then I'll come back around because I just was over there for a minute. So any abilities are fair game now.
Okay, so I was thinking like maybe like since he has telekinetic power, you could do like either a wall or like maybe like a ball that when you shoot 80 like auto attacks into it, it will collect the auto attacks, and then when it explodes or if it's like a wall when the ability is over with, it deflects like the autos back.
Okay, yeah, so absorption is
Yeah.
You love that.
Yep.
That's kind of like an Amaterasu wall-based.
Well, the thing I like about that is the visuals, and we had a pitch on this in Old Time where we actually wanted the ability to like spawn the actual projectiles that it had eaten. So like we could balance the damage and it wouldn't have to like actually be, but we could use the art, like so we could have Artemis arrows and Hui ricochets like all shooting out of it at once, which could be really fun. That's a great suggestion.
to kind of piggyback off what he was saying, he can have an ability that when he takes damage, so in playing off the passive that I mentioned, or that was mentioned, when he takes damage from certain gods while the ability's active, the more damage he takes from them, maybe the gods around him or he gets a buff for that god specifically, right? Because he's gaining knowledge about the attacks, things like that. Additionally, I was going to say for passive, kind of like a reverse Discordia. So Discordia, you get the highest damage. If you're the highest damage, you get a buff. So maybe if someone on the team is getting targeted, right, and they're falling behind, they get a passive, similar, like reverse of that. Maybe they get a little bit of, yes, yeah, because he's giving them counsel.
Can you just reiterate that last idea?
Oh, the idea of if someone's falling behind, give them a buff, like a passive, like the opposite of Discordia. So it's almost like he's mentoring them or giving them counsel to the one who needs it.
Only allies, right?
Only allies, I'm sure.
Only allies.
I'll be checking my phone from time to time. That's just to make sure I keep us on schedule. I'm not tweeting or Redditing while we're doing this. And Pawn, let me know if you feel like we should move to a future section, okay?
Yep.
Okay.
I did have an ultimate ability idea based off combining with the fact if we were to give him the ability that would give him wards of possibly like taking away the vision of an enemy. So like an enemy that he has vision of, like combining like a raw blind with a Shablanque ult, like, I don't know, like a 3-second duration of your screen's white, you can't see anything, like completely disrupting one person for a set amount of time.
Yo, where's F-Dot?
Yeah.
F-Dot in every single brainstorm
Every meeting.
For
pitches a new
years.
blind. Yeah,
And if it doesn't make sense with the god, it's just pocket
sand.
sand.
Yeah. Every time. Radar scanner. EMP, yeah.
Okay, I might have to repeat it because we're trying to record it, but go ahead.
I do want something like that.
The movement key inversion confusion debuff. That's the spicy one, for sure.
So I really like the ultimate idea of controlling another opponent and being able to cast their abilities and everything for a couple of seconds. If we stay with that, there could be an ability, maybe it's a projectile, and if it lands, then you're like tied to them. So if you move left, they move left, kind of like a tie, I guess, or something. Yeah, a mirror move or something.
That seems like a more balanced approach to the true mind control, because if you just had full control of someone, it could be very, very strong. All right, I'm working my way over here.
He needs coconuts.
Some good crab walking. I was thinking, because the wall stuff seemed really popular, like the idea of having more knowledge, so maybe like a two-way mirror, so the enemy team can't see through it, but your team can, and so they can like strategize around it,
cool.
that kind of thing.
How's that?
So yeah.
I'll slide through this way, if you don't mind. Yes, we actually we played around with some ideas like that for Yamoja,
Yeah.
but we had our ultimate doing a lot of things already, so didn't need an additional component.
So I was kind of thinking of what she was talking about but I was thinking about more like confusion with abilities, and like if be like an ultimate and you shoot it at the person and it just scrambles, like the 1 goes to the 4 or something like that. So like they want to actually ult, but like their 1 comes out or something like that.
Scrambling abilities. All right, I'm still working around. We probably need some like some damaging abilities too in here somewhere though.
Something to clear wave or poke or.
Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. I think we're doing good. We're doing good. We got a great start.
That's a rough one.
Or always think of a unique mobility as well.
I was kind of thinking for passive, since he is the god of intelligence. I was thinking because he is the mind of everything, he can't be like mesmerized or like hard stunned in some way, just so that way he's like, it's not just him there. He's got other abilities, so it gives him like a mental fortitude against that kind of stuff.
Yeah, maybe taunt and fear, that kind of thing. It's like, my mind's too strong.
Against emotional feeling CCs. That's a very interesting pitch. I like that.
I had an idea for like his ult. It could be kind of like when Nuwa goes in the air with her ult, how she has vision of all of them. He could go into the air and kind of have vision of everyone, but it would exponentially drain his mana, kind of like in Apollo or Cabrakan kind of thing. so that he's like up in the air, but kind of like, yeah, just kind of wards the entire map so you can just see everything for a little bit.
Cool.
For a movement ability, he could just levitate off the air, make it very visual, like obviously that he's doing this. He gets a movement speed buff and like no direction movement penalties, but it's channeled so he can't do anything else until he drops it.
Cool.
Magic.
Yeah, basically. Playing off the confusion idea, you can have like an ability that whenever it hits an enemy god, it causes like a tremble effect, possibly like splashes out and does like a tremble area.
We're big fans of the disorient CC, you know, the Bacchus.
Possible passive, going from the wisdom aspect, maybe like a certain area, or I don't know if it would play to the entire team regardless, efficiency for gold and XP. If you can get that little extra because he's the wisdom part on your team, and then a double part to that is kind of like a spider sense, for lack of a better description. Not very long. Like if someone comes out of the fog of war jungle or something, say he's a guardian in the duo, and someone doesn't get pinged by minions or a ward or something, you get just right before they get too close in a certain radius of him, you can get like the little like UI on the screen, like, oh, I should.
That's cool. Yeah, it would be like a second vision radius that doesn't actually give you vision, but gives you some other more subtle
Little ping
warning.
on the mini map.
Yeah, a lot of these are coming up as a lot of similar things we went through with Heimdall.
Yeah.
So just although he feels like he should have some vision, I think we can agree on that.
Yeah.
Let's challenge ourselves to make sure he doesn't focus too much on vision, because that's a god that we've got coming out right now. This is a very common type of problem we deal with all the time.
We have to sufficiently differentiate them.
And we'll start planning a god that we planned like months in advance, and we're like, oh wait, this is actually more similar than we thought it was going to be. And we have to make sure we refocus. So the vision ideas are good, but let's make sure we try to think about even more just as a fun challenge to the room. So I'm going to keep moving around. I was just over there. I'm sorry.
AJ, about how long did we want to do for the next sections? Because we've got about 35 minutes left.
Well, I want to make sure we do a bit of a visual discussion. Then I want to make sure we have time to compile things.
Yeah. Go to 133 then?
Let's do, so like almost 5 to 10 more minutes of ability suggestions? Cool. All right, a few more minutes of ability suggestions, and then we'll try to put it all together.
Standard ability probably is one. Some type of telekinetic push or pull, if it would be possible, more akin to, basically you can choose which direction they go. Because I visualize him as someone who's smart, someone who's a tactician. So it can move, so like, once again, going with that CC, but does damage, and then can either slam him against the wall, or push him in front of an ult, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
You hear that? If it would be possible, he said. Keep that in mind. Like, today, we have to worry only a little bit about that. Don't be afraid to pitch us something crazy. We want that. This is part of the fun of today. And then Chaos and the team up there, we can help decide at a later stage if they have that problem. So don't worry about it right now.
Rainbow Road.
Right. It's almost more of a controls element than it is a technical difficulty. But that's okay, so make sure let's pitch things even if they have those. That's still a great idea, and I really like that suggestion.
Yeah, last brainstorm was Rainbow Road bumper cars, so don't be afraid to get weird, especially as we get close to last brainstorm time.
So SMITE cards coming back?
Yeah.
SMITE cards?
That was the...
SMITE cards. Yes.
Okay, so I have 2 ability suggestions. So one, for a regular ability, it could be like a lane clear where he puts his hands up and he fires beams that pass through minions, but if he hits a god, it'll just root them in place. So that way he has just like, minor control, and he's got good lane clear. And then the second one is an ultimate idea. So with Medusa, you know that if you're facing Medusa, you get stunned, but if you're turned around, you get slowed. Same thing with him. What if when he ults, he channels, and if you're facing him, when it goes off, you get blinded, but if you're facing away from him, you get slowed.
I would love for us to bring back that facing mechanic. Tina, what you got?
I don't trust this
super
one.
mind reader idea. So he reads minds of enemies, and it shows them, like it shows on the enemy thing at the top bar, right? It says like, okay, he just used his ultimate and his da-da-da and his, So it like tells you, like, so you don't have to fucking remember the countdown. It's just like, okay, he just used his ultimate, and it only lasts for a certain, like, I don't know, 2 minutes or something, and then it goes away.
That's awesome. But yeah, you did
UI.
I'm going to expand on your idea a bit, Tina. Instead of being the enemies, have a passive ability maybe where he can get actual timers for all the jungle camps, like per seconds. Like even if nobody was present for the timer, he has the ability to walk up and go, oh, this was dead. Let me go back. Oh yeah, it died then.
Perfect
So,
jungle
like,
knowledge.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, so I was thinking for like a mobility, if they're in a certain range of him, he can push them back and do damage to them, and then push himself away from them as well. So like give them, you know, a much bigger space, like maybe 20, 30 units away.
I like the idea of
Vulcan
him
backfire
moving
with a
himself
knockback.
as well. I'm going to come around. I'm going to hit up back here, and then we're going to probably finish up down there, and that'll be the end of this section.
Vulcan launched an on her.
I was thinking of adding one to the first passive you had listed to that he would be able to see like enemy wards. Not that he'd be able to like take them down, but he'd just be able to see where they are, like on the map, so you could relay that information.
Cool. So he doesn't add more wards. He actually counters wards.
So I was thinking for like a wave clear ability, like he just has a simple wave clear ability, and if the ability hits an enemy god, it can like increase their active cooldowns by a certain amount of time. So maybe like 5 seconds or something to like their active cooldowns or something like that.
Cooldown extension.
So I was thinking something like Meeting of the Minds, where the more units are around you, the more powerful some of his abilities might be, and you could do that as either a passive or on something like the line clear, you know, either friendly or enemy minions and champions. You know, he ceases around him, draws power, it empowers or, you know, doesn't empower his abilities.
Could I hear the second part of that again?
About empowering his abilities based on specific type of units around him. So playing off the lore of him being kind of like a one mind with other gods. So volume or type could be changed. So size, shape, different types of units, and we could affect the ability in a lot of different ways based off that number. Okay, cool. All right, around we go.
Gotta get that cardio.
I was wondering about something like on the offensive side of things, like damage dealing kind of thing, and wanted to play up the link between the characters, so the mind like reading stuff. So I was wondering whether perhaps one of the ability slots could be blank and you choose to fill it with one of your teammates, like aggressive, non-ultimate abilities. And that kind of also means that you as a player, like it rewards your knowledge of the game, that kind of thing.
Cool.
It's a Morrigan 2.0.
No, your 3 is now.
So we're almost done with this section. I want to finish up in here.
So I have like 2 ideas. One of them is kind of tying off like the Baron Samedi when he like hits them, he like has the hysteria. So just like the more you attack someone, you gain knowledge on like their, like I don't know, like their weak points or like their strengths, and then you can do like extra damage or you weaken them, or kind of like a big ultimate that you could hit someone and you learn all of their strengths and weaknesses, and so your team can do more damage and they do less damage to you for like a certain amount of time.
Cool. So like a buff based on you knowing about them.
Right, passive or ultimate that heavily relies on exploiting weakness or learning about the other character. All right, we're almost done with abilities. So we only got a minute, so you guys have all had a few pitches, so let's go. We'll go quick, okay?
So it's just one you hit the enemy god with, and it's delayed damage. So, but instead of using your own power, say, for example, you hit, I don't know, pick someone. They hit them, and then 1 second later, one of their abilities, it doesn't take up their cooldown, fires off to hit one of their own. So it's kind of like they confuse them enough that a second later, they fire off an ability and hit one of their teammates.
Like an ability taunt kind of.
Yeah, you could do something like that, or have it be an AoE around that specific person, but delayed damage, if you will.
Mine would be more of like a wave clear based ability because whether it's a laser or a ball like Oleron's one, it would travel through minions, and the more it travels through, the greater strength it gets because it goes through more mines, if you will, collects more info. And I believe that it'd be a cool mechanic if, like, even after firing, if you moved, it could shift where it goes as well. However, maybe the more it shifts like location, the less damage it will be doing.
Can I just get that last one again?
How you can choose basically how the projectile moves even after fired. The only thing is the more it moves, the more damage it will, the less it'll do. It'll weaken more because you're correcting it.
So you're going to translate the projectile based on your position?
I think him being a god of wisdom, he's also a tactician, so I think he should not only be able to move like enemy gods, but be able to focus on helping move his teammates and make like faster rotations, things of that nature.
Speed buffs, something like that. Okay, I know we probably have a few more good ones, but we gotta make sure we move through the steps. Maybe we'll have some more time to come back to abilities, but since we picked a god that didn't have any specific description in the lore, I wanted us to just talk a little bit about visuals. So now that we've gotten a good idea of what this god could do, how would we expect this god to look? Does anyone have some way so you can feel free to use an example from another game or show or movie, that's totally okay. But describe maybe how you might change it or what part about it you like the most. Or if you just want to describe him a little bit generally, or bonus points if you can think of something very specific or unique that we would put on the god visually that would convey these types of themes and abilities that we've already talked about. So I'm going to move back around the loop again, starting from over here.
So when he uses his abilities, he could have like a flashing psychic armor if he's like a guardian. So like for his wave clear abilities, you know, a gauntlet appears like kind of transparent around his hand, but you see it when he pushes out his ability or when he's using his movement. If it's like, I don't know who said it, but you like levitate, he could have like boots or like greaves on, transparent. Just thought that.
Cool. I'm getting a bit of a Green Lantern vibe from it, where he uses these like summoned ethereal physical elements to convey his power. Cool, awesome. Thank you for that.
I'd imagine him to be like kind of a older monkish character, like probably bald, long beard.
Sure. Like a studied guy. Okay.
Probably something a little more traditional. Probably looking more like a Shinto priest, perhaps. And his robes could be like written with like words of wisdom, scriptures, things like that. Something that abides that knowledge. A well-learned person. Old.
How old?
Probably.
Zeus?
Probably like an older like one.
Problem is we've seen some
Like-
images.
So like 50 or 80?
Standing up. He'd be like very.
Like he's like a floating brain. But like we don't have to do that obviously. Yeah, that's rough. I mean, I think that'd be cool. What do you mean? What do you?
Something like that. More.
Did you ever play Awesome Mods? I heard.
Yeah, kind of like
Doctor.
Yeah, kind of like previous.
With like a body.
Closer to that.
Not crazy, powerless looking. Cool. Thank you. Suggestions here?
Some hungry.
So if you've ever seen One Piece, Sky God Enel has a ring. The Sky God Enel, I think is how you say it. He has a ring like this. It's One Piece.
That was One Piece.
One Piece. But anyways, it's a ring that has symbols attached to it. Instead of symbols, you could use eyes, since he is a god of vision and wisdom at the same time.
I think the eye symbology fits him really well.
For like, not necessarily himself, but maybe like accessories around him. He could have like maybe books or totems, like kind of like just floating around him.
Sure. Like Jonqui scroll style.
Yeah, exactly.
Floating.
Yeah, kind of like. So, just quick ultimate idea. For his ultimate, he could like have a real. It would be like a confuse, right? But it would be his damage. Like he could make it. It would be like a target on the ground, hit enemies, and when enemies get hit by it, they can confuse, and their damaging abilities can target their enemies or target their ally.
Right. Oh, so you turn on friendly fire.
A team
The
swap,
ability
and
taunt kind of idea.
Friendly fire
Yeah.
and healing can affect their enemies. So,
visual suggestions? A few more visual suggestions.
All right, I got two because no one's going out left field. Straight up Krang, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Told you.
All right,
I
let's
told you.
do that, please. Or if not, something similar to that. If you guys have been watching South Park recently, the Jeff Bezos or whatever his name is with a big brain. Yeah, like Mega Man.
Big brain plays. He's no smooth brain.
Funny enough, actually, if you try to Google this character, he was used in one RPG, and he does just look like a giant floating brain with like a couple eyeballs, tentacles and stuff like that. So
Andros from Star Fox.
Yeah, yeah. Some visual suggestions back here. I'll go all the way around. Okay, I'm coming around. Oh, we got one in the back.
Tagging along on the eye symbology, you know, like the TN third eye, although I think vertical is more.
Sure. Yeah.
The all-seeing eye, the third eye type of ascendant type of vision theme. A few more visual suggestions when I get back down to this very active packet in the corner. Oh, we got one on the way. Oh, what? Okay. So we actually have an artist in the crowd here who's sketched up.
Is this something we can like lift up and see?
A
Possibly?
mage. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we could get it on there. We don't have internet.
No, I don't think we can.
No, not internet.
Is it something we can raise?
Technically, it could be emailed to me, and then I could look at it and write down what I'm seeing.
But it's so we've got a mage type character robed here, with definitely with some of the Shinto priest inspiration. But the main suggestion, the new suggestion, if I'm understanding this right, was to give him an inhuman face. So either like ethereal with floating elements, rocks or stones, or possibly something that actually took the symbol of like a Japanese word or letter that might mean something related to him.
Sure.
Did I rephrase that pretty well? Okay.
Have mist sort of floating around out from him and have eyes.
I like that.
Mist and floating eyeballs.
It's like the idea where like your head and face almost like a mannequin, right? Just blank,
Okay.
But it's just one Asian caricature for wisdom. Like that's his face.
Wow. Thank you so much. That is really cool. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. We'll see if we can find a way to get that up on screen for everybody. All right, just a few more visuals.
Yeah, so kind of on that same note, I was thinking like as Thoth is an entire image from the book, he himself is just a brain, but for the SMITE Battleground of the Gods, he summons himself as an ethereal form. So kind of like the Sun Wukong ethereal, where it's kind of like empty space, it would just be like the brain in the middle that is completely solid, and then you have an ethereal person around him with the ornate robes and other stuff like that would present his intellectual prowess.
Cool.
In Japanese culture, it kind of reminds me of an old man. I don't know if anybody plays Yu-Gi-Oh here, but summoner monk, like a very old, has the gray hair and everything, with like a hood, no eyes visible, like almost in that crisscross Buddha form, and he floats on the ground, and he has 5 eyes that are around him because he doesn't have any on his face. And some abilities can be cast through the eyes, or it can represent the passive, like how many are lit up or whatnot, and like that.
Can't remember who.
So I love the idea of the Shinto priest look, but instead of making him old or making him a brain or making him eyes, which of course are all great ideas as well, but having different masks similar to like a mempo. Remember the old He-Man cartoon with the guy whose head's turned? His head could turn with each, that it's similar to, and then have the masks themselves.
Giannis kind of plays that up with the two. Yep.
Awesome. So honestly, like sometimes I would do a vote here or something, but you guys correct me if you're wrong, or you guys. It seems like I think we've got a pretty good consensus of the clear Japanese influence on the clothing, with some robes or some mage feeling there, but we don't want to make him just a human or an old man. We probably would want to do something with the ethereal, the brains, the eyes, the symbols, the masks. All of those would be really cool to explore. And that's something that we would be even okay with telling our artists, like, try out a bunch of these different things. It's
Here
not
are
even
some
necessarily something
directions to
from a
explore.
design perspective, that's enough. So I think that's probably what we would go with in this type of scenario, and I think that's really cool. And I like how we kind of covered that together. You know, as we moved across it, we started with a man in robes, and we went all the way to the idea of like a giant floating brain, and then we toned it back to find the right cool concept in the middle.
Does this feel like a good summary for everyone in the audience?
So do we feel now that he's moved himself more towards a control mage and not a guardian? Because a lot of people were leaning on mage, but we were concerned about making a boring mage, but of course we wouldn't do that. We are the greatest design team in the history of SMITE.
Or at least in this room.
If we call him a
take those
unique
claps, that's fine.
control mage, do we feel pretty good about that? Okay. So now I want to make sure we give the panelists a chance to share some of their favorites, and let's start copying those into a rough draft final kit.
Yep. So we got on the left, we have all the ideas with the header and the kind of visuals. On the right is where we can start throwing off our favorites. So I'll let you guys do most of the driving here.
Is there anything that just immediately jumps out to you as like, yes, we should do that? That's really cool.
I had one with the opposite, where as much as the suggestion's thrown out a lot, boost to XP is terrifying. Yeah.
So
we've tossed that around a lot, but
So maybe we could do it if we combined it with the lowest level character thing,
Right.
like that.
Like the
But even then,
assist
it's
XP.
still pretty balance breaking.
Right.
So let's. Right. So although that suggestion makes a lot of logical sense, maybe let's not.
it also never stops. So like there's always one player that's going to be constantly behind. So you're basically always just injecting extra EXP into the game.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good feedback. So what about
There's nothing. You're still generating more XP.
What
Yeah.
about abilities that we definitely should keep?
So I love the idea of the mind control ultimate. I like with him as a mentalist. I feel like if we don't do that, that's kind of a miss.
You'll figure it out, Chaos.
So I think it's tricky to figure out it, not even just from an implementation perspective, but in a way that doesn't feel too frustrating for the enemy player. We always try to think of what's fun for the player playing the god, but also what's fun for the players playing against the god. So I don't know. We might need to pivot slightly off of it, where instead of mind controlling like an actual enemy, you mind control an NPC like the Fire Giant or the Gold Fury, or you mind control an enemy tower, and the gods who are in there are getting hit by their own tower for a while, something like that, right? Yeah.
The Minotaur in Arena.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. That's possible.
Oh, I can see it. So channeled.
But
Yeah, I
something
think-
about that idea.
I think channeling, making him vulnerable, some of the suggestions, we had the binding suggestion where he was kind of bound to the mind control target. There's some ways to make it feel like it's fair.
Sure.
But it's still it's a pretty risky and difficult endeavor. But I think for the sake of this discussion, it seems like it's a pretty cool front runner.
Like a signature, I think. Yeah.
What about play style feels or passives? We usually start with ultimates and passives, like I said, because they're the hardest.
I definitely liked the mentor outside of EXP, just mentorship in general. Like if you were around someone, the lowest person around you, maybe got movement speed to keep up with you and they could follow you around, or maybe like you had an ability that would like actually boost or augment them in some way.
Yeah.
Let's put it up there. Let's put the mentorship passive.
Yeah, based on that, amplifying your teammates thing. Someone talked about the mana heal, but I wanted to take that one step further possibly, and maybe make that in like an AoE around you that not only increases mana, but just MP5, HP5, movement speed, and just like kind of accelerates all parts of you, including your cooldowns possibly, like kind of like an AoE Discordia 3.
Wow. That would be an ability, probably. Though.
Yeah, no, that'd be an ability.
So just a really strong AoE buff.
Yeah, it'd be like an AoE Discordia 3 around you for
Omni
HP5 and
buff.
MP5. Yep.
Cool.
But it would replace his movement ability. That's
Anything else that we saw on the list here? We got to get some telekinesis or some psychic laser
there was,
beams.
there was the just move people around left and right, like the force push and pull. I think that's kind of awesome.
Yeah, I especially like the push pull people with a conditional on hitting something, so that like you're not just encouraged to like move them, but like you're encouraged to move them specifically in directions so players can figure that out. Like if you're standing next to a wall, you're likely going to go straight into that wall. Maybe you could have players collide.
Yeah, okay, let's put the double wall where one was the push and the other one was the like penalty. I thought that was kind of clever.
We got we got a buff and we have like a CC ability here. We still need a damaging ability. There was a cool. I really liked the damaging ability that gained power as it passed through targets.
Yeah,
I liked
yeah.
the ability that we kind of had the suggestion of using some sort of new tech that even once it's already traveling, based on how you turned your camera, would turn the projectile while it's traveling.
Yep. That could be like merged as like an idea. You
Yeah,
can
that was one ability. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that was a pitch. I really like that one.
That's probably
I want him shooting some cool laser beams. You know, just like.
So I don't think we can actually like update rotation.
Freaking laser attachment.
I want to kind of use psychic. It's super
We
effective.
want to try something different for that.
Side beam.
Like looking deployable.
Stop on God? Sure.
That happens a lot.
We could do projectiles is actually deployable.
So we've got a passive, we've got a 1, 2, 3, and a 4. Okay, we almost have something here. We're getting close to running out of time. So one thing we would do a lot of times in this scenario is identify if there's something really like missing or something that we think would complement the kit really well that we don't have here. So like, so he doesn't have movement, but maybe that's okay if he has
A lot of mages
strong
don't.
regen and strong CC.
So,
The push ability could also be used on self to like push him forward. That's really cool.
so I had an idea to go with the mana heal on that aura. Is we had one ability where he kind of like went into like a pose and levitated off the ground and got to move faster, and that drained his mana as he was doing it. We could have this mana heal that augments people around you be tied to that thing as well, so he goes in that state and he can stay in there as long as he can to help his team, but his mana is draining from that. That could be a movement ability. They can just kind of toggle on.
Could you try to write that up in your own format, and we'll see if it. Is there anything here that we think is just nah? Like anyone just feel like straight nah about something here, like, or something too close to something we've already done, or anything like that? I don't. We're running close out of time. We're almost done here, so we're making little tweaks, you know.
Can I talk about an issue? Just it's not really a big deal, but with push and pull, you got to be careful with that because of the special like the arena, special maps where you can push pull people off the map. That's one thing. Another thing is like you know, with the new mages that have come out, like Oleron and Merlin, I feel like the levitation is similar to those two gods. You know, the Oleron has the levitate, and so does, you know, Merlin in a sense with the blink. Yeah.
Those are good things to keep track of. You know, do you think that we could get away with it if we waited enough time? Like if this was going to be a season 8 god? Yeah, I think so. Right. Yeah, I definitely get some Oleron feels from him for sure. Like we've got a little bit of that, and that would be something that's exactly the type of thing we would try to identify and be careful of.
Just with the telekinesis, the push into wall, just to give it a little bit more utility, you could even do a telekinesis, push into wall does damage, push into god does stun.
Yeah.
So that way, it also gives it higher of a skill ceiling too, to be able to bounce.
Yeah, that's really. It's like a conditional direction on her impale. We'll take a few more suggestions, but I think we're getting pretty close to a kit, huh?
So this one's more of a visual addition. I think it would be cool to have, we said we didn't want him to be just a man, but having kind of an ascension theme as a wisdom learning god, and having him become more godlike as he progresses through his levels might be a neat thing.
So
yes, the Scylla passive kind of idea came up with that too, but with a visual hook attached to it. That's cool. All right, we're in the closing thoughts section because the design team, you guys confer and kind of lock down the finals up there if you can.
yeah,
So we talked a lot about vision. It applied it to his kit, but in like the final one, we haven't discussed anything about him having vision. So I was really like when he talked about having the eyes flying around him. I thought it'd be really cool to have like a 2-in-1, like like a two like. Because he has like the eyes flying around him, so he can use it either to hit an enemy and it has like a 9-second cooldown or something like that, or he could throw it at a wall and that would work like a ward for like 30 seconds and it'll be like a lot longer of a cooldown.
So which of these abilities do we already have? Do you think vision could
I think the biggest thing we'll have to do is figure out how to get this alternate ability.
I don't love the heal. He doesn't feel like a healer, but there's a lot of talk about the vision in his thing. So I was thinking more of like having like a line attack that could also work as a visual, as a ward, if you like put it on a wall, like a wall or something.
So design team, the heal, we maybe not feeling the heal.
So the heal.
What vision thing did we talk about that you liked the most that maybe we could do? Because we talked about vision a lot and then we cut it all. So
Yeah.
let's challenge ourselves to bring back a vision idea that we think is going to be the most interesting to fit. If we're going to keep the power-up projectile, the telekinesis, and the mind control, what vision idea could go
One of the
well?
things that we liked, Alex and I were talking about, was even just maybe not so much vision as much as the denial of vision. I think is choosing an area where you're just negating any wards, or if there's any mini-map vision of the characters, maybe it's like starts moving around like an EMP, where you're kind of just confusing the enemies and what they see on the mini-map.
I was thinking too, there's like radar scramble in like Halo games where you see like all the different people on the mini-map, and we can probably do that where we have like the same god icon like moving around in ways that they're not actually moving on the map, and it would be like really confusing to see that, right? Because you think somebody's coming around when they're not.
Oh, so we're bringing back an element of confusion and vision. How do we feel about that? That feels really iconic to the character.
So
feels cool.
Can you list that a little more?
So essentially, like imagine at least in Halo, right? Like normally you have your radar, you see your dots where people are going, right? So in this version, it's like you still see them, but their movements don't match what they're actually doing in the match. Right? It's giving you fake information. So it makes you think they're doing certain things, or it's scrambling it, it's making it confusing, so you can't really rely on it, but it's still like there, right? It's not completely hiding it from you.
You could make this ability, though, give your teammates good information, and you give enemies bad information.
Exactly, yeah.
And it could have some sort of debuff component or something like that for something like Arena, where, you know, we always got to keep in mind Arena, a lot of these vision-based and structure-based abilities don't work in Arena.
Yeah.
And we have to be able to play standard Arena with all of our characters. So we're pretty much out of time. We're in our last 5 minutes. I want to make sure the design team panel gets a good feeling for everything.
So it looks like we have so we got a passive that allows you to amplify your teammates, gives progression through, and has like a kind of visual component where he's leveling up and getting more visually impressive.
Or what if he got a reward for after successfully mentoring each teammate up to 4 times?
Okay, stack it up.
Yeah. So I got to go mentor Chaos in the early game, and then Clumsy in the mid game, and me and Pawn group up late game.
So we would need to decide exactly what this amplification is.
Okay.
Otherwise,
we don't necessarily have to decide right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's more based on a personal relationship with each player, which makes it feel a little different. So
we have projectile power up that passes through, and that feels like a fully complete ability.
Yeah.
The radar scanner as a utility ability feels pretty complete. We may want to add some other additional components that's a bit more usable maybe in combat directly, but that could be something that we'll discuss
I feel
later.
like this would have to be some sort of double circle, like one around him, one at range, and the allies around him, or something of the enemies that range, because we don't want this to apply globally, or it could just be a point blank AOE.
Yeah. Right.
And I feel like he would need some damage or debuff on here, or some sort of skill shot component, or he would be
a delay and warning, right? Like
Sure. Yeah. So then we got telekinesis.
So we would need to decide: are we pushing people into walls, or are we creating the 2 walls that collapse together?
So he's almost got a theme between his projectile and his telekinesis, where his kit, he fires his ability, and then he can move things like after he fires. And we could do the projectile and the telekinesis could both use that tech. So the downside that would come to this character is his abilities, just going 1, 2, 3, 4, would take a lot more time, because he would be, or it would mess you up, right? So I would fire my one, and then I want to stun someone over, or telekinesis someone over here, and I would swerve my projectile, even though I'm not thinking about it anymore, and I'm trying to fire my next thing. But that's a pretty cool gameplay hook.
Yeah, you might not be able to like have the one in a state where if you press it again or something, you no longer control it, no matter how you're moving your camera.
If you fire a new ability, it just continues on
some
its
sort
way,
of version
and then you
of that.
now are controlling the next one.
Yep.
This is really awesome now. This is sounding super fun. So hold on, let's make sure the design team gets a chance to comment on every ability before we wrap up. All right. Mind control. Chaos. How do we get this past the programming team?
That's a rough one.
Did Fish give you sufficient examples to make you feel like we can do this in a way that is not just straight overpowered?
It's a little tough. Well, I mean, it would be very similar to Morgan, right? Because we're still swapping pawns out with Morgan.
Right.
So you're still swapping your character out for another character. I think it would be easier than switching to gods because you don't have to like copy all that information. It's a lot.
Right.
At least these monsters are a lot simpler. I think it's doable. It's doable. It would just require a lot of testing and stuff. And
What about more on the movement one? So what if like it's a skill shot, I hit a god, and then I walk backwards, and then they walk toward me?
That one's good.
That one?
The only thing is we would probably have to make it so that the person who got hit has limited movement. Otherwise, it's going to get like either jittery on server client. So you're gonna have to like.
Could we keep them so they one to
Yes,
one?
yes. If you do one-to-one, that's perfect.
They'd be fully rooted and
'Cause then
crippled,
they're- Yeah, and then it's completely deterministic on their end, so they always know that they have to wait on you to move.
Right.
Therefore, the client's not trying to figure stuff out.
Could we have them independently turning and firing still
They
of
can
their
still
own
rotate.
control?
Rotations
Yeah.
are fine, as long as translation is just one. So as
No.
long as when they're moving, it's one person.
So if we just do the movement and the other enemy can still turn and fight, does it feel mind controlly enough? Does it feel cool to us, or do we kind of like too many compromises? So a lot of times when we have a scenario like this, we start playtesting with the most powerful version, and then we pair it.
What if we just fully mirror everything? So I fire my one. If they can fire their one, they do as well, right? And so like we do their default targeter in the way they could. So like imagine if I had Hercules.
What about
pushed.
their rotation? Do you rotate them?
Maybe.
So I mind control you, and then I turn you sideways into a wall, and I just press 1, 2, 3 for you to waste all your abilities. That would be like a way I could do that.
In theory, but you could also make it so that you could make it so that the cooldown doesn't get consumed, or the cooldown is heavily reduced. You can't use ultimate ability, and maybe it can damage all things. So that way, you have to be cautious that your teammates can still get hit because it is the enemy like Herc that you have pushing.
So unfortunately, we are out of time. So thank you, everyone. I know you had more suggestions. Last year I took this and posted it on our SMITE. So you can keep the suggestions you didn't get to share. You can share those as comments there. Pitching it to the rest of the players is even harder than pitching it to us. So that'll be a cool way to continue contributing to this even after it's done. But I'd say everybody, thank you so much for participating. We had nonstop participation, which is what we want. So everybody give yourselves a hand for, look at this kit. This is cool. This is really cool. And you know, if this jarred your memory, we are having the next panel is the panel where you can pitch us any ideas. So if this inspired you for a different god or a different skin or a different mechanic, relic, item in the game, go ahead and hold on to that pitch and bring it to the next panel. Thank you to our designer panelists, and thank you to everyone else. So all right, we'll turn it over to the next one.